Hey, Queen. So, where are all the good men? You've been wondering, like, how come there's no good men out there? So, a lot of you guys answered in one of the polls that I made that one of your biggest fears or issues is that you truly believe at heart that there aren't any good men out there, right? And yeah, this is pretty common. So, today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the root cause of that. We're going to talk about where are all the good men and why it is that you're finding this belief. Okay? And also the consequence of having a particular mindset. Okay? So if this has ever been you thinking that or feeling that way, then this is for you. So let's get started. I guess welcome back to myself. Um I've been gone for almost 3 weeks, recovering from COVID. So I am back, but my voice is not quite back. And if I'm coughing, sorry, I'm not gonna edit this. We're just gonna roll with the real, raw, and uncensored self that I am. So anyway, let's get started. So the first thing that I want to say to you is imagine if you were talking to men and they were like, there's no good women out there. Where do I find the good women? Like, same thing. And you're thinking like, what the hell, right? So they are thinking the same thing, right? And let me just start with the first thing that we need to tackle. And that is healing. Okay? So you have a notion that there aren't any good men out there because of your previous experiences, obviously, right? Or even previous experiences of others. If you saw your parents, have a messed up dynamic, if you had a father figure that was absent or not good, you have an even deeper, you know, belief and misconception that all men out there are bad. So at the root cause of this is healing. I'm going to talk about my example for a minute. You know how I made a video about how I healed my feminine energy, like the part 1? And I talked about growing up in Mexico and how all the women there, well, not all, but like a huge percentage of them, women there are really, really feminine. They're on their light feminine energy. They're like love and light, like they are an extreme of that. And like all extremes, it comes with consequences. So I saw them, including my own mother and like all the women around. Maybe there were, I can only think of maybe 2 or 3 women that I knew there that were truly balanced and that I admired. So my issue was growing up thinking that being a woman meant you're just a female that is born to reproduce and bear offspring, and that everything is about your kids and so on, right? Basically, I grew up with the notion thinking that being a woman means almost that you're an animal. Like the cat that is there breeding, kittens or the dog that is only there to have kids or have a family, whatever. Kind of like I had a huge um pain that being a woman meant nothing else. And I didn't fit in, obviously, with any of the women there that I grew up surrounded by, because how come I had all these ambitions and wanted to live abroad and do this and that? I was a freaking freak, right? I wasn't normal because I wasn't like the natural destiny of just breeding only. And a lot of you can relate to that. So imagine if I had grown up, or imagine if I went on through life believing that being a woman and being a wife meant being like an animal that just breeds. Imagine if I held that belief. Imagine if I didn't heal that. I would never, like, I'm 39, right? And I would still be chronically single and childless and no family. I would be just one more unhealed person out there. But what happened is when I was maybe like 16, I thought, you know what? Mm-mm, no, that's just you. That's just all the women I'm surrounded by here. Yeah, not all the world is like that. It's just all my freaking entire world here. And I knew that in my heart because it didn't make sense that life would have to be like that, right? Just like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever that all men out there would be bad or that there's only a few ones. So I knew that no, like being a woman is not just that, it's so much more. So I believe that I knew that. And then, of course, I decided to go abroad and I went to Sweden as an exchange student. And lo and behold, I was right. No, not all women were like that. Over there in Sweden, they were completely different. They were women that had their masculine energy really well developed. Of course, soon enough, I found out that they weren't very quite balanced either. They were too masculine, too much in their masculine, right? But I didn't have to choose one extreme or another because it just so happens that in life you get to choose balance. Okay. So, anyway, I just said, you know what? No, it's just you. So, the bottom line there is that had I not healed that and decided that it doesn't have to be like that, I would still be freaking chronically single and all of that stuff. But no, I went on to happily marry, like I did rotational dating when I was 26/27. I got married at 27 and I've been married for 14 years now, almost 14 years. And, having a baby and all that stuff. So healing is deciding. There's a misconception that to heal, like you need to pass centuries and you need to go on a lifetime of fucking suffering and this and that. The Freudian psychology kind of proposes a little bit that you continue to dwell on it for years on end and keep talking about it and this and that. Of course, you can talk about it and go to therapy and all these things, right? But there's another, part of psychology, how do you say it? Adlerian psychology, that proposes that you don't need a freaking century to to heal. You just decide. Kind of like, you know what? It's just you. I'm moving on. And that would be in your best interest. Or is it in your best interest to dwell on it for a lifetime? Do you have time to do that? Most people don't. So what I want to say to you today is, today you can decide, any man that hurt me today, that's just him. They're not all like that. And it's not only a few that are not like that. Why? Because it makes no fucking sense. It doesn't make any sense. So today you're like, you know what? No, I'm gonna find the ones or the one. You only need one that is, you know, amazing. And that's how you heal. It's not freaking rocket science. Some of the things like abuse and stuff like that, you do have to go to, like, behavioral cognitive therapy, this and that. But things like this, you can just realize that, you know what? It's not, I'm deciding right now that it makes no sense that they're all like that. Yeah, so that's how I healed my own, pretty much all my stuff. And you can do that too. Be practical and move on with life. Unless you want to continue a lifetime dwelling on that and never changing and never achieving your dreams. Okay? So the other part I want to talk to you about is when you are unknowing about human nature. You have this idea that you live in a spirit world or some kind of like moral world, some weird idea like that, that is not serving you. What will serve you, on the other hand, the solution, is for you to understand that you live in an animal world. The human being is an animal. Let me say that again. The human being is an animal that is different from animals in that there's a higher consciousness. But you're not a floating spirit. You're made of flesh and bone. And so are the men around you. And with that, you need to understand their animal nature. Because comprehension is the only path to discipline. And understanding their nature is what will make you be successful. Okay? So let me grab a couple of examples that I've mentioned before. And this comes with my third point, which is accountability. Okay? But let's break it down. So you are dating a guy, and then soon enough, like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 dates. He's like, oh, I want to cook a mean dinner for you. I want to give you some wine that I brought from Argentina or from France. I want to share that with you and cook for you. And you're like, oh my God, how nice. Oh my God, this is like moving forward. And you go on accepting going to his house. And then one thing leads to another. You end up fucking, and then, like, he starts fading out and things start to fizzle out. And you're like, oh, he tricked me. They're all assholes. He's bad. No, like, who told you it is a good idea to go to a man's house? Going to a man's house, he's asking you to be alone with him. Do you think he's asking you to be alone with him to, you know, cuddle or like look at his dolls? No. When a man is asking you to be alone with him, He's asking you, okay, let's go ahead and fuck. And here you are, thinking that's adorable. I mean, it's all fun and games until you fail to realize that if you are fucking the men that you date, most of the time, not every single time, but most of the time, they lose interest because you're not giving them something to hunt. They like the hunt is over. And if you fail to realize that a man in his animal nature is a hunter, he's a tiger, he's a cat, he's a lion. If you're failing to acknowledge human nature, well, all men are going to be bad. But let me break it to you. Let me say the suspense to you. All men, just like you, they're they have an animal self. You have an animal self, and we've talked about your animal side of things, which is you will start to pair bond the minute you have any kind of intimacy with a guy, right? It's just your biology, okay? It's their biology to be hunters. So when you go on in the dating world, ignoring the fact that there's an animal nature, there's the human nature contains an animal side of things, right? So if you go on to be unknowing about that, then seriously, can you blame them? Can you blame them? No, like take radical accountability and responsibility for your own, side of the story. Let's grab another example. So you're dating and you find a guy that you really like, and soon enough, you go exclusive with him. You go exclusive without any commitment. Because in today's absurd, dating practices, they think they're using they're telling you that a commitment is tell you a couple of nice things like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm only going to date you." Yeah, right. And I was born freaking yesterday. Even if that was true, that's not good enough. That's not a commitment. Why would I remove myself from the dating market for just some guy? No, a commitment means an engagement and a guy pledging his assets to me and my unborn children through marriage, yada, 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 the stuff that I freaking talk about nonstop. Right? So when you're thinking that a commitment is something like a couple of sweet words, well, whose fault is it when you spent 4 years with this man? And let's not use the word fault, but whose responsibility is you spent 4 years with this man who still hasn't proposed to you, you're 39 or 40, and he never really wanted to marry you. But oh wait, all men are bad. No, where is your accountability? Who told you to freaking commit to a random? They're all randoms until they commit to you with tangible stuff. And if you don't have that standard, Honeywell, I invite you to raise your standards today because they're not helping your case of meeting good men. Or there was a stripper that came to me, inquiring about all coaching, blah, blah, blah. Not just her, but there's been multiple, women that did this kind of work, like sex related work or whatever. And she's like, all the men that I meet are shit. She met a lot of the men she met through her work of stripper. And I think she was even going to church and finding the same thing. Well, it's like not only are you meeting men in a capacity of you without clothes, you're meeting men at their lowest. What do you expect? So take accountability. And I know you freaking hate to hear this, right? You hate to hear that you play a part, and you also hate to hear that men respond to you. Okay? But until you can um empower yourself with this, knowledge and realizing that you have the power to choose differently, things will not change. So I just want to say you can decide today to heal your previous experiences with men. You can decide to understand how they operate, understand the human nature side of them, their animal side. You have an animal side, they have an animal side. Understand it and work with it instead of against it to set up yourself for success. So this way, you don't wake up being 50 and like just starting to heal then. No, you can be in your 20s and hopefully early 30s and heal that and move on and get with the program. And then you get to have a happy story. You get to go after your dream of having a family, of having a lifelong mate, a forever the one, beautiful husband. You get to have that if you decide that you get to heal. Because let me break it to you. Good men are everywhere. They're everywhere. But if you don't look with this certain lens of that, you will never find them. And let me just finish this by saying you should probably know this by now, but your beliefs shape your life. Whatever you believe is true. If you believe there's plenty of men that are amazing out there, you will find them. If you believe that they're all assholes, it'll be true for you. And this is a universal law. Like this is just a freaking law. Okay? So be really, really careful on what you really believe deep down and do the inner work of why is it that I believe that? And decide that it gets to be different. Decide like, no, it's just you and you and you and you. Like my case of healing that stuff that I told you about was very difficult. I'll tell you why. Because I was surrounded by the same reality. Like all the women were the same. Like I said, there was only maybe one or two or three that I met living in Mexico that were different. Women that were more than just doing their biological thing. Nothing wrong with doing your biological thing if that's your thing. Your biological destiny, if that's your only thing, good for you. Just know there's kind of consequences to that. There's a duality to that, just like with everything. So I was surrounded by a country, by a freaking, like just everywhere around me. So I could have easily believed that this is life and been just the same and be miserable. So here, wherever you are, maybe if you're in the Middle East, maybe if you're in Southeast Asia or whatever, could be a little more difficult to overcome this belief and this experience, similar to my belief, growing up in Mexico. But the good news is that it's just them. There's more out there. So, invitation is to choose to believe something else, decide to decide that there's a different reality, because it's out there, a different reality, because it literally makes no sense whatsoever that all men would be bad, just like it makes no sense at all that all women are bad, just like a lot of men out there think that. It makes no sense. It's like the stupidest thing, like, in the planet. Like, there's everything out there. But also think who you attract, blah blah blah, right? Like, there's more to that. So anyway, let me know in the comments if this resonates, if this is ringing a bell. Let me know in the comments what your experience with this is. And I'll see you on the next. Bye.